Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Holland, the Vice Chairman of Enough, and we want to welcome you all to what we expect to be an amazing time tonight. As we all know, there was a significant change throughout our country with the mobilization of voters, especially in states like Georgia, and we see what the impact is when people come together and mobilize and vote. But even with the changes we've seen and with the increases we've seen in voting, especially among Black and Brown people, there's still a lot of work to do in many states. Tonight, we're going to talk about Virginia, and we're going to talk about the fact that Virginia voters matter. We have an outstanding panel tonight. It's going to be an amazing discussion. We ask that you take your pen, your paper out, sit back, and ask questions through the chat and leave the meeting empowered, encouraged, and energized as we learn what we can do to help mobilize the vote in Virginia. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Carl Armstrong, who's the moderator tonight. Carl also is the Criminal Justice Initiative lead within Enough, and he's also a man of many talents. He's the Carl in Carl's Conversations. So with that, Carl, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gary Holland. We appreciate you. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to this collaboration between Enough and Carl's Conversation. I am your host for this evening, Carl Armstrong, the creator and host of Carl's Conversations. Welcome in. You have just a moment here. Please make sure that you share this video, start a watch party. This is very, very important information, and we don't want you only to have it. This is good enough to share. Remember when you were younger and your mother and grandmother tell you to share and share alike? We want to do that today. We want as many of you who can to see what's going on. This is tremendous, tremendous work here in our community. And we're so glad that Black voters matter. We're going to get this thing started in Virginia. I'm so excited. I can't even remember what I'm supposed to say. But God bless you all and welcome in. I'm going to introduce our panel. And after I introduce all of them, they're going to come and give us a brief introduction of themselves. All right. We have Mr. Dean Anthony. He is the field director of Black Voters Matter. We have Ms. Danielle Brown, North Carolina State Coordinator for Black Voters Matter. Mr. Charles Brown, the Activated People. Ms. Valerie Slater, Rise for Youth. Delegate Joshua Cole of the Virginia House of Delegates, and Jennifer Carroll Ford, former Virginia delegate and now Virginia gubernatorial candidate. Y'all see that smile on her face? She smiles like she wants to be governor. All right. All right, we're going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Mr. Dean Anthony of Black Voters Matter.
Hi, everybody. Hope y'all are having a wonderful night. My name is Dean Charles Anthony II. I'm always introduce my whole name, and I'm the Deputy National Field Director for Black Voters Matter. One, I want to say this call is actually very, very special for me. Virginia is actually a home away from home. I was actually just up there 2 weeks ago in the Alexandria area, but just having the opportunity to speak with Kim and just hearing about the work that Enough has already been doing, I fell in love off the first conversation. I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. I'm really excited about this conversation, and I can't wait to move forward because this conversation is just the beginning. I promise you, you're going to be seeing a lot of Black Voters Matter and probably a lot of me and Danielle too.
All right. Thank you, brother. All right, Ms. Danielle Brown of the she's North Carolina State Coordinator of Black Voters Matter. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. So excited to be here. Looks like I've got some marching orders from Dean already. Thank you, boss. But I'm glad to be here with each and every one of you. When you guys reached out, I was like, why not? Look, we are right next door in North Carolina. So what affects you guys affects us. So we want to make sure we're rocking together and make sure we're doing this together. So I'm excited to be here tonight, excited to be on such an amazing panel with so many amazing individuals that I've heard so much about and kind of gotten to know and looking everyone up. So excited about tonight. Thank you guys so much for having us, and let's get started.
All right, Mr. Charles Brown of the Activated People, please introduce yourself, sir.
Hey everyone, my name is Charles Brown. I am with the Activated People, and our biggest initiative has been focusing on policy and legislation in the Virginia General Assembly. And one of the biggest things that we've been working on is criminal justice reform and the gang databases that were being formed in Northern Virginia. So we've had a lot of wins with rebutting some really bad policies like we're going through the General Assembly. And our biggest thing is pushing forward the legislation and giving people a reason to turn out when the elections roll around. Because as we all know, and if you don't know, every November in Virginia is an election. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Charles. I'm going to ask you to turn your volume down just a little bit, sir. All right, Miss Valerie Slater, Rise for Youth. Tell us something about yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Slater, and I'm a juvenile justice attorney and the executive director of Rise for Youth. RISE stands for Reinvest in Supportive Environments. I also want to put a plug. I'm also on the board of the Activated People. And so, Charles, glad to be here with you tonight, sir. And on the Virginia State Conference NAACP Political Action Committee team as well. And so, you know, RISE, I just shared that it stands for Reinvest in Supportive Environments, because we as a nonpartisan organization, we're committed to not just dismantling the youth prison model, but we want to ensure that every space that touches a child's life, it encourages growth and success for every child in Virginia. And while we are working to create healthy communities, we want that to be stemmed in community-based alternatives to youth incarceration. And we make sure that young people and their families are the central voices and on the front line of all of the work that we do. I'm excited to lead the work of the coalition because we're raising up the next generation of leaders. We're ushering in these young people so that they understand the political process. They are participating in it as early as they possibly can. And whether or not they are voting age, they can always show up and have conversation with legislators and let those legislators know, hey, you know what? If I can or if I cannot vote, I will vote eventually. And if you are not doing what you need to do, I'm coming for you. That's what we're teaching our young people. Don't just tell them we'll vote you in or out. Let them know that you're coming for them. And so I'm excited to be here tonight because every vote, every Black vote indeed does matter. And we're excited to make sure that that happens with our young folks in Virginia.
Oh, Attorney Valerie, I love that. We have a saying here. We'll either change your mind or we'll change your seat. Thank you. All right, Delegate Joshua Cole, who needs no introduction, but you go ahead anyway, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Grace and peace to everyone. I'm excited to be here with you all. I'm Delegate Joshua Cole, and I'm blessed to represent the 28th House District, which is centered in the city of Fredericksburg and Stafford County. I am finishing up my first term as a delegate. We're heading into re-election campaign, and I'm so excited to talk about the great work we've done in Virginia's General Assembly. Last year, we implemented so many reforms to voting and easing access to the ballot. I carried the bill to create automatic voter registration here in Virginia. This year, working with the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, we implemented one of the first states Voting Rights Act that has ever been seen in the United States. So we're really excited to share and push that for you all. I believe the governor is about to sign it in just a few days. And we've also been working on criminal justice reform, police accountability, making sure that people are protected, especially Black and brown people and people of color are protected as it relates to this vaccine and making sure people are getting tested for COVID. And so I'm just really excited to lead during this time and be on this great panel with so many great minds. So again, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. And last but definitely not least, candidate for governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jennifer Carroll Foy, as we call her in my household, JCF. Welcome. Please tell us something about yourself.
All right now. So it is an honor and privilege to be here with this distinguished panel. I am Jennifer Carroll Foy, and I am running for governor. And when I win, because I claim it, I will be the first Black woman governor in the history of our country, fighting for working families and our communities in a way that's never been done. And so I like to say the importance of voting is it doesn't just happen, and we can't just talk about it during election year. Right? It has to be something that happens every single day. And there's only one place on this earth that the person who sweeps the floor at Amazon is as powerful as the man who owns it, who's worth $1 trillion. And that is at the ballot box. So that is how powerful it is. That is how tremendous it is when people try to disinvest us from that tool that we have and that we can use, and reminding people that the soil you stand on is saturated with the blood of people who have died for us to be able to have this right. And how dare any of us take it for granted. So doing more to encourage and promote and get people out to vote, especially Black and brown people, is top priority for me and everyone on this panel. So I look forward to the conversation.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your introductions. First of all, I want to remind the audience, we are looking forward to your questions and comments, especially your questions. We have all of these wonderful people here, and this is an opportune time for you to absolutely get to them. And if your question makes sense, I'll definitely put it up and we'll ask it to the panel. Now, don't y'all get too personal, get too crazy, but we want to make sure we be respectful, right, of their time and of their titles. I'm going to start with a question for Mr. Dean Anthony. You know, we have heard of such good work that this organization has done, Black Voters Matter in a lot of different places. And so we want to know, when it comes to Virginia, what specifically do you bring here to get us started?
Well, to be 100% honest, it's not really what we bring, because y'all already got what y'all need. Right now, one of the big things that we talk about Black Voters Matter, with Black Voters Matter, there's a reason why we call it Black Voters Matter, not Black votes. There's so many places, and I'm just going to be blunt, they talk about how they're going to gather up the Negroes. But we ain't about that. We're about empowering our community. And just hearing the work that y'all have already done, y'all already gave them the steps. Y'all have already started to care about your community, to start saving your own community, protecting your own community. Now, I'm just going to be 100% honest. All I can do is support the effort that you're already doing. Help expand the work in the way that you want to see fit, because we're not here to save anyone. You already know what's important in your community. You already know what your community needs. I don't need to come to your town and tell you that you need a new grocery store. You done experienced that you need a new grocery store for a long time in your community, right? So I'm here to, Black Voters Matter is here to come in and support that work that you're already doing, to expand on it, to see how we can bring in assistance, or if you need some text banks, if you need some resources, if you just need someone to help plan and complain to, because sometimes that's what we need too. We need a little complaint. Or if we need to, in the spirit of Black joy, if we need to celebrate one another just a little bit more, that's the space that we're coming in. But we're coming in aggressively because we know that victory is on the other side. And just even hearing about the work that happened previously in Georgia and everything like that, I want y'all to all understand that the victory happened before the victory happened. You know, people don't see the boots on the ground. They don't see how many dinners were being given out, how many fish dinners were given out. They didn't see how many doors were knocked. They don't see how many calls are made or how many people are reached out. But they do see the effect on that election day. They do see the effect when their community changes. They do see the effect when a child in that community grows up with a little bit more hope. Because as one of our co-founders, Cliff Albright, says, sometimes the best thing that we can do is leave our people with a little bit more hope. And that hope can take off and really change the world. Because we know when Black people do the work, when our community does the work, it changes all of America. So that's why I'm just so excited. Y'all don't know. I was like, Danielle mentioned me. We need a church fan over here. We need a little organ, everything, because I'm just excited. I am ready to work, but you are already enough to do the work. That's why I like y'all name Enough. But we're just here to help expound on the work and support you in whatever way that we can.
Hey, man, brother, we're going to have to get Delegate Cole on that Hammond B3. This is a question that I want to ask to Attorney Valerie. It is wonderful that we are seeing what we're seeing now with the galvanizing of Black votes. It seems like we're starting to really understand the value of our vote. But I can't imagine that previous times we did not notice that. What is happening now that this is moving so fluidly and so strongly? What do you see now as opposed to what you saw years ago?
Right now, we are in what I like to call a movement moment. And I'm not trying to say I'm coining that phrase. I'm using what we all already know is happening right now. We are in a movement moment where from the youngest to the oldest, everyone is saying enough. Enough is enough, and something is going to change. Not something's got to change, but something is going to change. And every demographic is activated to make that change happen. And I'm excited because in Rise for Youth, we have been doing the hard work of making sure that young people understand how to make change happen, And we're not the only youth serving organization that's doing that. All over the Commonwealth, there are groups that are making sure that young people understand what is civic engagement. There's a whole class called civics in school that doesn't teach young people how to understand who candidates are, how to critically evaluate what candidates, what their platforms are, and what they are saying they're putting forward. And then looking at what they're saying, weighing that against a track record that they may have, whether it be voting or whether they have just been in their communities being activists. But looking at what you're saying, looking at what you have done, and then making a value judgment as to whether or not they can trust that you will carry out and do those things that you are promising to do. And so, as we and others are working to make sure that young people understand that process, then these young people are engaged and are putting forward to candidates. They're asking questions. When they are already in office, they're making demands on them, and they're taking note as to whether or not they are following through. See, that is a level of engagement that was not present years and years ago, right? Folks just barely thought the idea of I get a vote. Some folks thought my vote doesn't matter. There was just this almost this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that seemed to run through so many communities. Well, we are certainly not in a helpless or a hopeless frame of mind anymore. What we are recognizing is that together we can move mountains. Together we will move mountains. And we're not just going to cast them into the sea. We're going to erect the ones that we need to be present. We are going to stand strong, stand tall, and we are going to realize justice. We are going to realize equity. And as we raise up these young leaders, these are going to be the young leaders that are going to demand and then become the change that we want to see.
Amen. Like the Baptist preacher says, you're talking good, ma'am. You're talking good. I want to ask this question. Gary Holland has asked a question, and I want to ask it to Danielle Brown. How were boots on the streets motivated when the outlook seemed bleak? I asked that to Ms. Danielle.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. So what we as Black Voters Matter, part of our work in state coordinators, the work that we do overall is building, like keeping people motivated, keeping that energy. Everybody tells me all the time I'm always high in energy. So it's not really too hard for me sometimes, but don't get me wrong. There's when we start seeing things and we start looking at numbers and we start looking at how things seem, on the outside, we dig deep and we dig deeper and we say, you know what? We're going hard. We're going harder. In one of the counties that I represented in Georgia, we get a nice little message, 7 days before election day that says we are 8,412 absentee votes outstanding. How do we get all these votes to these drop boxes, to these polls? We start telling people, look, we need y'all. We start calling. We start making those calls. We start knocking on those doors. We start leaving that lit drop on those doors and making sure that we get people where they need to be. And you know what? That motivation comes when you start seeing, people dropping things off at the box and they tell you, oh my gosh, you know what? Y'all act like the bill collectors. I had to drop my ballot off. I got 3 notices that said, you know what? Just a reminder, drop your ballot off. When things get low, when they get bleak or whatever, we pull together, we rally together, we talk to each other, we uplift each other. We don't just uplift our communities, we uplift each other in this work that we're doing. When it feels like there's nobody else that gets it or understand, I know I can call my brother Dean and be like, Dean, look, and he's going to pull me off that ledge. He's not going to let me go. He's not going to let me go over there. So we rally around each other. We work together. We touch each other. We, if we need prayer, we praying together. If we need to sing, we singing together. Latasha is good for that. That's not me. That's not my last name is Brown, but that's not me. That's her. If we need to, we need that motivational speech. We need to call Cliff. We call him. Hey, we need a little bit of motivation down here. We do it and we do it together. Because we find that when we do it together, there's no stopping us from that. There's no end to that. That's the problem. A lot of times people want to separate us, and they want to say, hey, yeah, that group over there is doing that, or that group over there is doing that, or don't talk to them because they're doing that. We find when you take away all that separation and you bring especially Black folks together, you have that fist is mighty, and it does a mighty thing. It knocks some mighty blows. And so we do that, and we do it together. So when it looks a little bleak, or it looks a little like, you know what, I'm tired, I can't do no more today, we find a little bit more. We dig a little bit deeper. We pull out that joy. We pull out that love, and we just go hard. We go hard. We go hard in the paint, because we know at the end of it, it's a beautiful mural. It's beautiful. And we get to see what that beautiful mural looks like. Like in Georgia, we got to see it ocean sky blue. We got to see all of that. And it is amazing to see and amazing to be a part of. And it's even more amazing to see it and be a part of it with brothers and sisters that help lift you up in that moment.
That is amazing. I'm going to aim this question at Jennifer Carroll Foy first. And here it is. Gary Holland asked this question, Delegate Foy. How do we effectively deal with redlining in light of policies that seem to restrict changes that create fair districts? I'll start with you, Mrs. Foy.
Sure. So thank you for that question, Gary. I have to tell you that, I was excited. I was excited to work with Delegate Cole and many others to try to address and dismantle the intentional and insidious voter suppression tactics that Republicans have implemented here and executed with great precision for decades. So they have been able to make it so we have Democrats statewide, but we have not been able to have a Democratic controlled General Assembly until recently. And so once the courts have said, we're going to end this racial gerrymandering that Republicans have implemented here in Virginia, then you saw what should happen, which is a special master actually draw fair maps where they're not compacting Black voters into concentrated pockets. Our voices are heard, our votes count. And now you see that we have Democratic control. We actually have the trifecta here in Virginia. And so what we do is we continue to push the envelope. So I'm excited, like I said, to have worked with Delegate Cole and so many other people in General Assembly to beat back voter suppression by making Election Day a state holiday, repealing strict voter ID laws, removing, having no excuse absentee voting, removing the witness requirement for absentee votes. I mean, all of these things are things that we've done. Automatic voter registration, all of these things can help move the ball forward, because at the end of the day, the Republicans are on the record with saying that the least amount of people who vote, the more likely they will win. So making sure that people don't have access is their ultimate goal, because when we vote, we win. And they know that, and they see that, and they feel that right now. So we have to continue with the momentum that we're building. And so we can preserve our majority. We can make sure that Black voters are able to show up, because those restrict voter ID laws, for example, hurt predominantly Black and brown elderly people more than anyone else. I don't know about you all, but I had grandparents that were born in barns. They had no birth certificate, right? And so trying to find these things, and they still wanted to execute their right to vote, and it became a burden and a hardship. So that's what we have to do. We have to keep pushing and fighting and moving the ball forward.
Thank you, Delegate Foy. Mr. Charles Brown, I want to ask this question to you first, sir. How do we get Black voters out in the red district where voter suppression is an issue? I'll ask it again. How do we get Black voters out in a red district where voter suppression is an issue?
So I'm glad you asked that. And another plug, just for those who don't know, this actually isn't Black Voters Matter's first time being in Virginia. They were actually here back in 2018 and 2019, going into 2020. So they did a lot of work here. And one of the big things that happened was Lynchburg, which is a city known for Jerry Falwell, Liberty University, very red part of the state, actually went blue last year for the first time since 1948, first time since the end of World War II. And a lot of that was work that, we did. And full disclosure, I was actually a part of Black Voters Matter at that time, but we had the bus and did tours, actually educating people, actually turned people out. And we actually turned some red areas blue this last time around. So really the thing is getting people to know that their voice matters and actually educating them on issues, because that was another thing. A lot of people didn't think that they had a reason to come out and vote because they figured, well, things have always been the same. So just tell them, look, if you care about this issue, then you have a reason to come out to the ballot box. And during that time, one of the biggest issues was the Second Amendment sanctuary cities movement that was going on, and people really were dissatisfied with that. So we found the issues that they cared about locally, and we was able to get people to turn out in areas that, like I said, hadn't turned out literally in decades. So we've already done it. I think one thing to realize is that in Virginia, we have the urban presence. So you have like the Northern Virginia area going down to 95 to like Richmond, and then you have the Hampton Roads area. And that's really where most of the Black people in the state of Virginia are concentrated. Once you go west of 95, you have places like Charlottesville, Lynchburg. Danville is probably the most densely populated city with Black population over 50% west of 95 in the state. But we were still able to get people to turn out even in those rural counties. So to answer your question, it's already happening. I think it's just a matter of keeping the momentum up. And I think, like Valerie and others have said, people are coming out more and more. And quite frankly, a lot of it is coming from northern migration south. You know, a lot of people from northern states like New York, like Pennsylvania, New Jersey are more acclimated to voting. And I think we're taking those more left-leaning mindsets down here. And that has played a major part in turning the tide of the state. But also, like Dean and Danielle have already said, people realizing that they have the power in exercising it and not being so afraid, because we have to admit, this is still the Jim Crow South, and Virginia is still the capital or the former capital of the Confederacy. And we still have elements that will make it clear to remind you of such. But I think people knowing their power and being willing to exercise their power has played a big difference, and I think it's going to continue to play a big difference. That's it for me.
You're still muted.
You're on mute.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, that's it.
Delegate Cole, thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. Delegate Cole, I want to point this question at you. Gary says, are there strategies we can employ in Virginia to help with voter fatigue? We vote for something constantly. And I want to combine that. One of our viewers put up that there are still Black voters who feel like their votes do not count. I want you to address both of those issues, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And thank you for that question. I think, I don't know if Jennifer Carroll Foy or Valerie stated it earlier. Someone said, we vote in Virginia every November. And if you are voting in local elections, you know, it's coming to an end starting next year, but there are some cities, especially like the city of Fredericksburg, you would go to vote in May, you'd go to vote in June for the primaries, then you turn back around and go back to vote again in November. So there were people who were constantly going to vote. And so it's easy to get voter fatigue. Ain't nobody got time for that. That's the point of suppression. They put all of these elections in place so that you don't have time to focus. And especially if you're a single mother with 2 or 3 kids working 2 jobs, you don't have time to run to the ballot for everything that jumps up. And so one of the things we did this year, it gave me some heartburn. There were some issues I had with it personally, but Senator Lionel Spruill had a bill that moved all local elections from May to November. So now every locality in Virginia that would have had May elections now has to vote in November. And I think that's really going to help out as well. But one of the things you're going to see is we've had voter fatigue. We've seen how different people have run the state against our views and against our beliefs. And people in Virginia since 2017 have showed up and they've showed out. And so people are now starting to say, we recognize when we go to sleep and we don't vote, the people who don't look like us and the people who don't represent us get into office and they create all of these crazy laws. And so we're seeing people who are now raising up, they're stepping up. There's groups like Enough, there's groups popping up all over Virginia that are saying, we're no longer going to go to sleep and we're no longer going to let our neighbors fall asleep. I called them sleeping voters. These groups are popping up now and they're writing postcards. They are knocking on doors. They are posting on social media. And ever since I got seriously involved involved in politics since 2016, we have seen voters to show up at the poll only increase every year from 2016 all the way up until now. And going to the aspect of still having Black voters who feel like their votes don't matter, I'm knocking on doors all the time, and there are people who are telling me that. And I have to tell them, I am a living testimony that your vote matters. When I ran in 2017, we lost by just 73 votes after many voters in the city of Fredericksburg were given the wrong ballots to another district. And so I said, hey, that's one neighborhood. 73 votes is one neighborhood. And so we came back, we fought, people kept showing up and they supported us, they knocked on doors with us. And when we came back in 2019, we fought victory with over 1,000 votes. And so we have to let people know that it's a tangible victory. You look at me, you look at Shelley Simons, you look at Delegate Jennifer Carafoy, you look at Candy King, you look at all of these delegates who are Black, powerful people who are leading the charge, who just made it by just coming over the line. And so we have to show them a tangible way that we can win. Your vote does matter, and this is the proof that your vote matters. And so as we're leading into this next election campaign, because I know we got excited about getting somebody out of office last year, but we still have a lot of work to do this year. The whole House of Delegates is up for re-election. You have Board of Supervisors and City Council members that are up in November. And we have all three statewide, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general. And we cannot go to sleep like we did in 2009 and in 2010 and be back in the same trajectory that we were. It's now time to stay awake, motivate your neighbors, take Lottie Dottie and everybody to the polls, and don't let them go to sleep.
Amen. Thank you, Delegate Cole. That was an answer. I want to point this question at Dean Anthony. Dean, Gary has asked, were civic organizations and or churches important to statewide voter mobilization efforts? What other kind of groups or organizations were significantly helpful in terms of collaboration?
Yeah, so I want to say that Gary's talking about particularly in Georgia, but one thing that we know is that it takes all hands on deck, right? And a lot of times we get caught up in there being like a chief over here, chief over there, XYZ. And like my sister Danielle said, we all separated. Understand that the work that was done in Georgia was done by a lot of groups, knowing that everyone plays their part in order to get the bigger win. That's how victory really happens. So yes, we need the churches, and we don't just need churches, right? We need churches that are bold enough to say the truth, to acknowledge that injustice is a part of our beliefs that we are willing to fight for. We don't tolerate sin when it comes to injustice. We got to have civic groups that are willing to be on the ground with the people. We don't need people who want to look from afar and not be there and not stand with the people and not really support the people for their needs. It takes groups that are actually there and in the streets with us when we're marching. They're at the services with us when we register people to vote. When there's an issue, we're coming together and we have to have that ongoing conversation. Because I want to go ahead and say this. When it comes to us coming together, we got to accept two things, right? One, we understand that the work needs to be done too. But we also got to accept the fact that we're not even a little bit, we are traumatized from the hate that for generations that we've had to endure. And because of that trauma, we're all still healing. So people are going to be coming into this place in different spaces. Everyone ain't going to be gone whole. But that's why we got to have a little bit of love to bring everyone in, because that hand over there, as we come together, we able to do the work that we need to get done. So it's always going to take multiple groups. There is no one group that's going to be big enough, work hard enough to win this. It's going to be everyone playing their part. It's going to be everybody questioning sometimes each other, to making sure that we putting in the right people in office. And it's also one of the biggest things, even with Black Voters Matter. We also got to accept that voting isn't the key to our liberation. We got to accept that. Voting isn't the key. The key is us coming together. The key is us self-governing ourselves and accepting that we can do that. If our community says it wants to protect itself, that's fine. That sheriff has to respect what this community has said, and it can't be any back and forth. Because if you can't do it, we're gonna put somebody else in that place. So that's really what I want to say. I'm done now.
Thank you so much, Delegate Foy. This next question will be directed at you. Sandy Ludwig wants to know, are candidates willing to attend some Black churches to introduce themselves? You must be more than a brochure or a mailing.
All right, Sandy, I hear you, and you're absolutely correct. And so, half the battle is showing up, right? But we can't just show up at the Black churches during election season, right? Because it's a campaign. We need to be where the votes are. We need to be where the people are, and at the end of the day, I love Congresswoman Ayanna Presley's, words when she says that the people closest to the pain need to be closest to the power. And so when we go to our communities, we need to go where they meet. And so that's, Black churches, that's, cookouts, that's barbecues. I was at a barbershop on Friday in Petersburg at Razor Sharp, a Black owned barbershop by my friend. And I was there talking to people, asking them, are you registered to vote? And if not, why not? Your vote doesn't matter. Why do you think so? Right? That pothole that you hit on your way here, your vote matters. That's politics. Right? You making minimum wage, $8 an hour, trying to sustain a family on that. Guess what that is? Politics, right? And your vote matters on that. So if you want to change the system and uproot the way things are done, if you want our communities to move forward and not back, if you are tired of politicians being out of touch with the people and special interest groups having a stronghold and on Richmond stifling progress, then you need to vote, because that is your voice. That's the way that we get things done, and that's how it works. Right? And so it's kind of like a game. You either play it or you get played. It's as simple as that. And so that's how I try to ensure that it resonates with people, because we have to meet people, our people, where they are. Because there's been so much misinformation and disinformation about voting and politics and all of these things. But at the end of the day, that's what matters, because when we elect people in office who's going to do the work, we get the results. So when you elect somebody, by the name of Jennifer Carroll Foy in office, what she does is legislate. She chief co-patrons a bill to end the practice of Black people getting fired for what naturally grows out of their scalp, called the Crown Act, right? Passing bills to reduce the Black maternal mortality rate, where Black women are 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than our white counterparts due to implicit bias, discrimination, and racism. Passing a bill that in Black and girl and boy school pushout, where little kids, Black kids, were being told, take out your braids, take out your locks, and don't you dare come to school with this hijab. And if you do, you have to leave and can't come back until you decide to take it out or take it off. But no more. No more discriminating, harassing, and targeting our Black youth for their culture and for their religious beliefs. So that's what happens. That's what it means when we say elect people doing the work. So that's why we have to go everywhere, because it's about Black voters in Southwest Virginia, rural Virginia, North, South, everywhere. We need them to know that you have options. And if something that you don't like, if your values aren't being talked to and your interests being represented, then we need you to do something about it. And we need you to vote. Talk is cheap. Voting is free. So let's get it.
That is the quote of the evening so far. Talk is cheap, voting is free. All right, we got it. We got it. Attorney Slater, this is what I want to ask you. We know how important it is to direct some of this effort to our youth. I am concerned about those children, 16, 17, 18, even going back to maybe 14, 15, who will be turning 18 sometime between now and our next general election for president. We have to get them engaged now, even though they can't vote, and have them set up so that when they're registered, they will immediately start getting involved in voting because they have been taught. Is there anything with what we're doing in this effort that is pointed toward that particular sect of people, young people, so that we can get them engaged early and have them voting?
I'm so glad you asked that question. The young people that we work with in Rise for Youth, we work with young folks aged 14 to 24. We want to make sure as young as, those middle schoolers that are just beginning to understand that they have a voice and they're attempting to exert it and push it forward. Yeah, we want to make sure that those young people understand the civic process. We happen to share the office with another organization that also does that work, and that is the Virginia Civic Engagement Table. And we have worked with them to create a youth development academy to help young people understand that full process. How do I advocate for the things that matter to me? How do I look at all of the ills in society that are impacting my family, that are impacting my community? What is it that these folks keep saying? And is it lining up with what they're doing? And so, as we continue to educate this next generation, we're making sure that they're going to be ready. And we're connected with another group, Abu Unity Foundation, over in the Hampton Roads region. You know, when you look at where kids get incarcerated from in Virginia, Hampton Roads tops the charts. Approximately 40% of all of the kids that end up in juvenile prison in Virginia come from Hampton Roads. And then Richmond, they come in a close second. And so if we already know that that's where they are pulling our kids, Black and brown kids, and putting them in prison, if we know that that's where they're coming from, then that's where we need to target and focus our efforts and making sure that those are young people that know how to vote. They know how to understand what a candidate is standing on and what they are saying, and know how to then be critical in their thinking to make decisions about who they are. And then just one last thing I want to share. You know, someone talked about Black folks feeling like their votes and their voices don't matter. I'm going to tell you what, we can set our North Star on the large games, right? What's that big picture thing that we want to win? But we've also got to realize that sometimes, you know what, if you're going to eat an elephant, it's always going to be one bite at a time, right? So look at those little short-term gains that you are able to win, and make sure that you keep chipping away at it every session, and that you are able to point back to something to celebrate and say, you know what, we're one step closer, and we're going to keep on fighting until we get there.
Thank you so much. Ms. Danielle Brown, I want to ask that same question to you. I know you did a lot of work down there in North Carolina. Did y'all have special programs pointed towards that youth group?
Absolutely. We have in North Carolina, we have about 3 partners right now that are geared mainly toward youth and the work that they do in the community. And we start, you know, like we, much like Miss Valerie, we start early. You know, we start with, I have pictures of little kids, you know, as young as 3 years old, lit dropping this past summer, you know, dropping, you know, because it's important that they understand what they bring to the table, so that by the time they become adults, we're not spinning our wheels, and getting them to understand what type of power and what type of what they bring to the table when it comes to voting, and when it comes to their political rights. We also talk to them a lot about what they want to do, you know, because again, they navigate. They're the ones who tell us, you know, it's a lot of times we don't know and we don't understand what's happening and what's going on the ground. But they do. They can tell us exactly what's going on in their neighborhood. I used to tell people all the time when I used to run voter registration campaigns, if you ever want to register people to vote, go talk to a kid. They will tell you who has moved into the neighborhood, who has moved into their mama's house or their auntie's house or whatever. And that right there is going to show you exactly who you need to go talk to, because if anything, we need to change your address. We need to get you updated. If you ever want to know what's happening on the streets or what's going on, ask a child. They will definitely tell you. They will tell you about the local person down the street who just got shot. They will tell you about the gang members that hang out on the corner. They will tell you about the new grocery store that just came up. Why? Because they're intuitive. They know what's happening. They know what's on the ground. But those are our next generation. Those are our next political leaders. Those are the ones who are going to be able to navigate and tell us what we need in our future. And it's very important that we have an ear to them and we listen to them. Part of the work that we do here in North Carolina is listening sessions. We want to hear just from the community. What is going on? What is happening? I can't talk to you about registering to vote if you're trying to figure out how you're going to feed your children tonight. I can't talk to you about political policy if you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for $1,000 worth of insulin and you live in a food desert and you've lost your job because of COVID. These are real situations that our children see every single day and they experience every single day. So we want to know anything. We want to build that next generation. We want to have them in the forefront. We need to make sure that we're listening to them and having these conversations with them. I get really excited when a child comes to comes to me and says, you know what, I love the bus, I love what you guys do, that makes an impact on them. That makes an impact on them that they will remember for the rest of their lives. So when they go to those polls and they're like, you know, why am I going to, yeah, I remember this person talking to me, I remember getting a t-shirt, I remember getting a bracelet, I remember somebody embracing me and telling me that I had some power that I didn't even know what I had at that point in time. And by the time they are in our HBCUs and they're kicking it and having a good time or whatever, they're not only thinking about what they're doing in school, but they're thinking about how they can actually be a part of the process. And they're leading other students to the polls, and they're leading other students to city council meetings and commissioner meetings. And guess what? They're running for offices themselves at age 19 and 20. It can happen. It does happen. And we need to take just a little bit more time just to listen, just to have that conversation with them so that they know how much power they actually bring to the table, even at an early age.
Thank you. That was tremendous. Mr. Charles Brown, I want to ask you, I know that you work with activists. As you go about your work, what are some challenges that you're seeing when it comes to getting people engaged and also getting them registered to vote? I think that's very important for us to handle on this call.
Okay, so the biggest thing as far as a challenge, like with registering people, is them not feeling like their vote matters, right? And I think that's always the biggest thing. But I think once you get past that hurdle, fortunately here in Virginia, voting is fairly easy compared to other states, right? We actually do have online voting. So if you have a tablet or even your phone, you can actually, if you're talking to someone, you can actually have them do it right then. You can actually register to vote online here. So I'll say here in Virginia, it's not as hard as it is in other places, like say Texas, for example, where they don't even have an online portal. So we actually have it fairly good. And I think, like I said before, people are waking up. So it's not as much of a challenge as it was, say, 5 or 7 years ago when people weren't as engaged. So I think you still have people, though, who don't feel like their vote matters. But I think Delegate Cole was saying earlier, you know, the momentum is going up. So I think, you know, the challenges aren't as stark as they have been. And I think with the results we've been getting in the past few years, people are more motivated. So fortunately, you know, I think I can answer that question in the positive in that it hasn't been as big of a challenge, at least not here, as it has been in other states where they're dealing with outright vote suppression. Like, for example, Georgia, where they have officials who are outright putting in laws to make it more difficult and arbitrary to vote. We haven't had that here in Virginia, so fortunately, we've been blessed in that light. But I still think getting people to recognize the issues, and I believe future Governor JCF was saying, you know, get people to connect the issues that they care about to the ballot box is really the key. And I don't really care where you're at and what you're talking about. People understand that the issue that they care about, whether it's a pothole, whether it's not having the schools being underfunded, whatever the issue is, getting them to understand that it connects to the ballot box, it usually 9 times out of 10 works to get people motivated. And also connecting through their kids. One of the things that I've done through my advocacy, when you're talking to people and you talk to their kids, you'll be surprised how persuasive the children can be to getting their parents to get out to the ballot box. Because I've had situations where the parents are like, I don't know, and the child will be the one to motivate them. So I think using the kids as the leverage. But like I said before, Virginia, we're pretty blessed.
Thank you. I want to ask this question to Delegate Foy. And if you are elected, ma'am, this is going to fall right in your lap. Stephanie asked, I have helped a few people get their rights restored. Do you all have information on that process and what can be done to help shorten the process? And I want to add on to that, very possibly future governor, and I hope you won't forget me. In this state, I think that we did pretty good in 2020 and leading up to 2020 when it came to making sure that our citizenry knew that if you are a convicted felon, there is a process for which you can go through to get your voting rights restored. But if I'm not mistaken, in the state of Virginia, that has to be signed by the governor. If we send you to Richmond, will you make it easier? Because I think it ought to be for the convicted felons to know that there is a process, and if they have done what needs to be done, let's get them on the voter rolls. So I give that to you, Delegate Foy.
So I appreciate that question, but I'll do you one better. I don't think anyone's right to vote should be taken, period, hard stop. Because let's be clear, it's a residual of Jim Crow to disenfranchise as many Black and brown people as humanly possible. So at the end of the day, we can say, well, after you serve your time, after you're on probation or parole, after you pay court costs and fees, and keep moving the goalposts, keep changing, but keeping the barriers that's there. But at the end of the day, as governor, I pledge to support and put forth, a constitutional amendment that says that your right to vote should not be taken. And so I did that as a delegate and put that forth. But as governor, I will support that and ensure that we make that the law of the land here in Virginia, that no one's right to vote should be taken hard stop.
Thank you. Delegate Cole, I want to ask the same question to you, sir.
I had to jump in on that one. And I'm so excited this year. People don't even understand how serious it is as far as disenfranchisement in Virginia. It's so serious that taking the rights of returning citizens away is embedded in the state constitution. But this year, I'm excited that we started the first steps of restoring the rights automatically. We're dealing with some language in the bills. There's a House version and a Senate version, but both versions have already passed. They'll go into conference. It passed this year. We have to come back next year. It'll pass again next year. And then it'll go on the ballot in 2022 to make automatic restoration of rights as soon as either one, returning citizens come home, or never taking that right either way, depending on how the conference report comes out this year. But we've already started that process, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm looking forward to great things in the next year.
All right, wonderful. It does not seem like we've been on for almost an hour. And this thing did say 7:30 to 8:30. I hate to even start to wrap it up because it seems like it's just getting real juicy. But we're going to respect your time. So with these few minutes we have left, what I want to do is open the microphone to each of the panelists. There may be something that maybe we did not get to that you want to get out to the audience really quickly. So I want to do that. We're going to start with Ms. Danielle Brown. If you could address the audience, maybe something we didn't get a chance to get to.
Oh, I get to go first. Okay. So I just wanted to definitely uplift the fact that, in Virginia, you guys have the power. You have all the pieces that you need that are right there to do the work. Again, with Black Voters Matter, we are here just to add a little, add a little love, add a little joy, and, bring a little capacity out and show you just how much power you actually do have. And we're here to support that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm excited because I'm in your neighboring state right next door. So it takes nothing for me to go across the border and hang out. And I'm even more excited about the work that you guys are doing and what I'm hearing and what I get to see on a regular basis. So it makes me so very proud to know that I have other brothers and sisters and comrades that are there, that are holding down the fort and making sure that we overall understand and know that Black voters matter and that you don't have Black votes without Black voters.
All right. Thank you so much. Attorney Slater.
Thank you. I am so excited to have been a part of this conversation. What I'm going to lift up is that our young folks are in the process right now of working with us to put together a candidate questionnaire. We are indeed, Virginia, like we said, elections are happening every single year, but there are some very pivotal races that are happening right now, and we need to be able to hold candidates accountable. And so I'm asking each of you to stand behind these young people. When they reach out and ask candidates to fill out the questionnaire, you ask these candidates, hey, did you fill out the questionnaire? I know that young people put one together and they are demanding that you put forward what your agendas are so that they can then make value judgments on who they're voting for and then hold you accountable. I'm really excited to have had the opportunity to work with both Delegate Cole and Delegate Foy on some really important legislation over the years. And they have both proven themselves to be not just what they say, but they do what they say. And so we need to make sure that when kids enter into the arena, when our young people enter into the arena and they are starting to ask questions of candidates, that those candidates are answering and that they are then being held accountable for what they said they're going to do, because that is the best way to show kids that their votes matter, is when candidates are accountable to them even from the very beginning.
Thank you so much. Mr. Charles Brown.
Hey y'all, I'll keep it short. One thing I do want to uplift, and I believe Delegate Cole mentioned the voting rights bill that has to go through 2 sessions. One thing I'm a little disappointed from this past session is that the original bill actually made it where everyone could vote, including those who are incarcerated. So like in states like Vermont and Maine, where you never lose your right to vote. So I think hopefully once this bill does pass next year, that we can, and it does become constitutional law, that we can actually push for making it where you never lose your right to vote in the first place. But I think, we have to acknowledge that there's some legislation that went through the chambers this year that actually got to a point where it never gets to, that actually crossed over, that usually get killed in subcommittees, and that was something that happened very often in prior years. So the fact that this legislation even got to the point where it's actually potentially becoming law is huge. So that's the one thing I wanted to uplift.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Dean.
I just want to leave y'all with 2 words: love and power. That's on every bus, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna bring that bus back up to the Virginia. It's called the blackest bus in America. We keep 2 words always on there: love and power. We understand that when we love on our community, it empowers our community. But we also understand that once we have power in our community, without that love, we'll abuse our community. So we want to make sure that that love and that power is always there. Understand that I love every single person on this call right now, but I am invested in the empowerment of Black people in their communities, because we deserve that love that we're going to give, but we also about the empowerment and taking what's rightfully ours, the proper healing that's in our community, the proper elections that should be in our community, the proper just environment. Black Voters Matter is invested in creating an environment that is safe for Black people everywhere, but also a place that we can love on each other and really, really push the envelope for what this country, as great as it says it is, of what it really can be. I'm just grateful for everyone on this call. I'll guarantee you're going to hear from me very soon. We're going to see how we're going to work together, how we're going to put this all together. But hey, we are here and we're here to stay. Thank y'all so much.
All right. Thank you. Delegate Cole.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you so much for gathering these great minds together. One of the things that I would leave with voters who are watching, whether you are a Black voter or you are a Black person who doesn't vote and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to prevent you from voting. Another thing that I would let you know, if you're not interested in politics, your landlord is interested in politics, and that's how they keep your rent high. Your boss is interested in politics, and that's how they keep your pay low. Your insurance is interested in politics, and that's how they keep your premiums high. And so if you want to make sure that you bring power to the table, we need you to activate. We need you to get involved. We need you to vote. And as it's already been stated, hold elected officials accountable. If I'm going to say that I'm going to do something while I'm campaigning, I'm going to try my hardest to get it done once I'm in office. And if I don't, I'm going to tell you what the reason was. Hold us accountable, get involved, and make sure you pull Lottie Dottie and everybody to the polls at every town hall that you come upon. I appreciate y'all, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Foy, or shall I say future Governor Foy.
Listen, from your mouth to his ears, okay? That's all I have to say. So, yes, I want to thank you all for being here for this fantastic discussion. I admire and respect every single person on this panel doing the work, and that's what it's going to take. So to all of the people out there, if you're a Black voter or not, I need you to hear me and hear me well. We have gone from the marginalized to the margin of victory. We have gone from picking cotton to picking presidents. So we need to own our power. We need to acknowledge it, and then we need to wield it like a sword in order to get what we need and uplift our people and our community in a real way. So that's what it's about. And every election is pivotal for us because every single person we vote in power will have a say in our lives, in our children's lives, in our community. And that matters to us because you matter, I matter, we matter, Black voters matter. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm motivated all over again now. All right, Gary Holland.
Thank you. Hey, thank you to the panelists. This was amazing. We were behind the scenes trolling through all the comments. The broadcast spread across that no fewer than 10 different Facebook groups and we can't count the number of private pages, but we tried to capture the questions and to post them. We do have a call to action from Enough for those that are watching, not so much for the panelists, but we are going to capture information from everybody that asked a question, and we're going to send you a message and direct you to our Facebook group. The Facebook group is @That'sEnough99, and there's a link at the very top for you to sign up for our email list. We are going to work on scheduling a series of virtual voter registration sessions and community listening sessions, and we want to set them up across the state of Virginia. Had it not been for COVID, we'd be working to set up those barbecues that I believe Jennifer referred to, so we could be in person. But because of COVID, we're going to work on a series of virtual voter registration sessions across the state, and we're going to use those as opportunities to listen to the community, to listen to what people have to say. So please go to our Facebook page. It's @That'sEnough99, and there's a link right at the top that says email sign up. Click on that. Make sure we have your information. We'll go through the comments and we'll message everyone that asked a question. Please respond and sign up so that we can take the next step after tonight and begin to come together in our communities to get information out, to register voters, to hear what they have to say, and to make sure we're ready to hold our elected officials accountable as we move forward. So thank you, everybody. Great time tonight.
Thank you once again. The panelists, you are awesome. Audience, you're awesome. Thank you for hanging with us. I want to remind you, Jennifer Carroll Foy is running for governor in Virginia. I'm going to say it again. Jennifer Carroll Foy is running for governor in Virginia. It may sound like I'm going to vote for her. Jennifer Carroll Foy is running for governor in Virginia. I'm just saying. Thank you all so much, audience. Don't forget to go by That's Enough 99, like, follow. Also, come by Carl's Conversations here on Facebook. You can also catch Carl's Conversations on YouTube. Like, follow, and tell a friend. We say thank you to all of our panelists. You are awesome. I look forward to having you back on this platform again in some way, shape, or fashion. Attorney Slater, I need to be calling you. We got to talk, homegirl. You my brand new homegirl. Thank all of you, and the audience, you're just great. So until next time, may God bless you and may heaven smile upon you. Bye-bye.